Welcome back, everybody, to the Attract and Stand Out podcast. I'm your host, Darlene, and I am so excited for today's conversation. I have with me Jamie Lieberman. She is the owner and founder of #Legal and has been a practicing lawyer for nearly 15 years. As an experienced entrepreneur, Jamie understands the unique need of business owners at different stages in their organizational growth. Today, she partners with clients across verticals, including influencer marketing, creative services, and e-commerce. She has a deep commitment to making legal accessible and regularly speaks about legal matters, the art of negotiation, and entrepreneurial topics at leading industry events such as Alt Summit, Podcast Movement, FinCon, and an expert source for medias like Digiday and Forbes. You can also catch her as a co-host on the Fearless Business podcast. Jamie, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
I am so excited to have you here today. I know that so many entrepreneurs and so many of my clients and my audience, they have either newer businesses or maybe they've been in business for a little while, but they're in the online space. And you specialize in helping businesses really get situated with all their legal needs online, which is beautiful because we all know an attorney and we all know people that can help us. But I think one of the things that I learned when I switched my business completely to the online model was like, you have to know the online world a little bit to figure out all of these things. So I'm so glad to have you on today and just kind of dive into that with us.
Thank you.
Yeah. So let's start. Before we dive too far in, I would love just to hear a little bit about you and your story. So catch us up. Tell us a little bit about who you are and how you started your business.
Oh my gosh. Yes. So like you said, I've been a lawyer for 15 years. The first half of my career was spent in very traditional legal services. I worked at big law in New York City. I worked for the federal government, all of those things in complex commercial litigation. So pretty much all the things that you think which was terrible. So it was, it gave me an incredible foundation. I learned so much. It just really wasn't the working environment that fit me personally. And I just sort of felt like I was floundering in the legal world. When I had gone to law school, I loved law school so much. And I was just so excited to become an attorney. And then when I went out there to actually practice, I felt like the wind was taken out of my sails.
Yeah.
So about halfway in, 7 or 8 years, I decided to just say, I'm going to leave and I'm going to attempt to try to do something on my own, but I didn't know what that looked like. So honestly, I freelanced for a while. I worked for other attorneys. I started figuring out like, what do I like to do? Who am I? What am I interested in? And I had been a creative pre-law school. I worked in publishing before I went to law school, and I was a photographer. And I was a blogger. So I blogged a very long time ago, like with a blog spot. And
that's taking us back.
Right? I'm aging myself. And so because of that, I started to sort of in about 7 or 8 years ago, I started to like dip back into the online space. And in doing so, I realized like there's something here. This is kind of interesting, but I didn't know what that looked like yet. So I started blogging a little bit again. I started working for some companies that were actually creating conferences for bloggers. And this was so new and so sort of revolutionary at the time. And then one of the women I was doing some freelance work for said, "Hey, do you think you may want to give a talk about legal issues for bloggers?" And I was like, let me figure out what those are.
Yeah.
And fast forward, that was the beginning of #legal. So I gave that talk. And I realized, like what you said, all these bloggers came running up and they were like, I need help. Like my lawyer down the street, or they don't even know that I make money or how I make money. And they just kind of look at me like I'm crazy and so that's really how we started. So I started in the blogging space, and very quickly I expanded out to be working with creators of all kinds, whether it's coaches or designers or bloggers or tech companies. I find that the common thread that sort of binds all of those companies is they either ignore legal because it scares them.
Yes.
Or they had a bad experience with an attorney. And so they're very gun shy about trusting attorneys, or they've dealt with it, but they sort of kind of begrudgingly think about it. And so because of that, we really aim to make it accessible. We try to make it easy and not scary.
Yeah, which is brilliant because so many people have like this preconception idea of what they think an online business owner is, right? They're like, oh, like what, like, oh, I always joke, like I've had clients tell me like, my parents don't even know what I do. because I say that I'm like working from my laptop and I'm, writing blogs and I'm got clients in this way. And they're like, how does that even happen? Because, the old school way was you went to work, you made money, you came home. And now so many of my clients are like doing, digital courses and they're coaching and they're doing everything in the online space. And they're like, how is this possible? Like, how are you making money from the internet? They're strangers. Like we were told growing up, like, don't talk to strangers and watch out for people on the internet. And then I laugh because that's how we make our living now. Is
That's
completely
right.
from strangers on the internet, which is such a beautiful thing, because we definitely, 15, 20 years ago, maybe even less time than that, you couldn't work like this. You wouldn't be able to make the right connections. Like when I started my business coaching practice back in 2007, it was completely on the ground in Las Vegas. It was, networking and going and meeting people and walking into businesses and introducing myself. And now I'm like, it's nice that I don't have to do that, though I miss it sometimes. I'm like, I kind of miss going out, especially right now, 7 months into the pandemic. I'm like, oh my gosh, it'd be amazing to go to a cocktail party or a networking event.
That's right.
So yeah. So you got this idea then. So you were from working in that line of
Yes.
work.
Yeah. So I got this idea and I just started to practice and I sort of, it started small. I was still doing freelancing. I was still, deciding if did I even want to run my own law firm?
Yeah.
And then I had another business as well. I had a partner that worked with me. We are no longer partners, but in the beginning of the business, we worked together and we had a whole other business that I sold. And so we were building multiple businesses. I was still freelancing. I wasn't sure. And then I started to narrow. I realized I don't want to freelance anymore. I don't want to work for other lawyers. I want to build my own thing. So that went away. And then I realized that the other business that I was building wasn't really where my heart was. So I sold that. And then I realized, like, what do I love and what am I most interested in? And that's working with clients and really strategizing with clients and helping clients grow their business, speaking about legal topics, teaching. I was a professor for quite some time at Seton Hall Law School. So taking some of that experience and turning that into the entrepreneurial world. Like I talk a lot about negotiation. I used to teach negotiation, things like that, advocacy. And so taking all of those experiences and sort of bringing them to where I was now, and the business just grew. And so then I started hiring because I was like, I can't do this all myself.
Yeah.
And now we're an all-female team. I have 6 employees that work for me. They are all virtual, although some of them are local to me. And we do have office space both in Hoboken, New Jersey, which is where I live, and in New York City, but I can't go there anymore, unfortunately. And I have lawyers that are licensed and work in other states as well that work for us. So we've built a pretty awesome team. And it's just taken years of just figuring out like what we're good at, what I like to do, the right type of clients. And a lot of that is just trial and error.
Yeah.
Now I feel, because now I'm 7 years in, I feel like I can get on the phone with someone very quickly and be like, yep, we're going to be a great fit, or we're probably not going to fit for each other. So I think you should find somebody else. But that just takes experience, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that you found like the niche that fit well for you. Like just from what you were saying, like you pulled from your past experiences, your past jobs, like things that you've done in the past, and you kind of pulled that all together to make like the perfect career for you.
That's exactly what I did.
Yeah,
I was
which
like,
is,
no one's going to make it for me. I got to do it myself, because I
yeah,
loved being a lawyer, but I do not like the legal practice as it exists. I could talk all day about that. I won't. But there's a reason that people have the trepidation about attorneys, because many of those stereotypes are true. Many bad experiences. There's many really negative things about the legal field. And I wanted to make that different because I truly do love being a lawyer. So there's ways to take difficult jobs and turn them into something that you love.
yeah. And it sounds like you created like the perfect match for you, which is beautiful. Cause I talk to so many of my clients. They're like, they forget about like the stuff that they've done in the past careers or in their, college days or whatever. And I'm like, no, like those things still count. Like you get to pull those in. And if like you
Yeah.
loved pieces of that, like find ways to bring that into your business so that you can talk to them and you can share that expertise, and you don't have to like close the door to that previous chapter in your life. You pull it together and pull it in so that you can connect and continue to grow. And, that's why people want to talk to you. They're like, oh, like you're an expert in these areas. This is what I need support with. This is what I need help with. And they love like the stories that you share because of that.
It's so true. Like I said, photography was a hobby of mine for a really long time, but I'm also an engineer in my undergrad. So like take those two things in my tech companies. They're like, oh my gosh, you are an engineer, you have an understanding of tech. And then my photographers and my designers are like, oh my gosh, you have an artistic side. And so taking all of those interests and past experiences, and I haven't done anything with my engineering degree, but I have, the education, and I have a love of science and a love of technology. And so I can fast forward that into working with tech companies to help them with complex privacy issues, things like that. So,
Yeah.
And I don't have to pick and choose. I can have my tech companies and I can also have my designers. And I don't need to say I'm only going to work with one set, because I love the fact that I'm able to sort of pick and choose the ones that work for us.
Yeah, absolutely. What do you think was one of the most challenging things for you as you created this business and pulled everything together to like get it off the ground and to market it and get your name out there?
Yeah. Becoming the face of a business, I think,
Oh, yeah.
was something I really did not expect to have to do.
Yeah.
Create so much video. My social media manager always teases me. I'm much more comfortable with it now. I am an in-person person. So I love to meet people. I'm an extrovert to the extreme. I will talk to anyone all day. If we're in an elevator together and you want to strike up a conversation, I'm in. And I just love to meet people. And so really sort of putting myself out there online felt a little bit strange to me in the beginning. I'd love to go. I could give a talk in front of 1,000 people and not even blink. But the first time I flipped on that video to like record my first video, I was so nervous. There's just something very different about it. So that was definitely a challenge for me. I also think that there's a lot of conventional wisdom where people are like, you have to niche down. And I really fought that, like with what I just said, with like my tech companies and my designers. And I'm just like, but I don't want to. So I'm not going to.
Yeah.
So that, I think, turning off all the outside noise and just focusing on like what it is I want to do and what I'm interested in doing, and not really caring what books are being written or what the trend is or anything, and just having trust in myself that I know how to serve the clients that I work with, and that it'll all sort of work itself out.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think trusting yourself is such a powerful thing too, as well, because like you said, like you're doing this new thing. You're like, wait, what am I doing? Like this whole video, and you're not alone. I feel like the first time I used like Facebook Live, I was like, it was like the worst thing ever. It was definitely worse than standing in front of 1,000 people. And I was like, why am I so nervous? I'm like, if it's bad, I can even take it down. I can delete it.
I
And I'm
know.
like, and no one's
I
even
know.
watching it anyways. Like your first Facebook Live, it's usually, the algorithms are not in your favor to start with, but we tell ourselves these stories like everybody in the world's going to watch it. They're going to judge me. I'm going to mess it up. So I can totally relate to like that thought, like, how am I going to put myself out there and be the face of this brand when like I have to do all the things, like everyone's going to be looking at me. It's like all eyes on me.
Yes. That's quite intimidating at times. And that was something that I definitely was, I don't know, but now I really love it. I like connecting
Yeah.
with people. If something that I say or can do can make someone just a little bit more comfortable with legal, then I'm happy to get up on video and feel a little bit uncomfortable.
Yeah, exactly. What is most people's like biggest fear when it comes to legal and talking to attorneys? Like, what is the thing that you hear the most?
It's that they're going to be taken advantage of.
Mm.
And I don't hear that. No one ever comes right out and say it. But if I were to really like think back to all the conversations and all the pain points that I hear, is that people are afraid that their lawyer is going to abandon them, not answer their questions, overcharge them, give them these phantom bills that they never were expecting to get, because these things really happen. So
Yeah.
I understand why people feel that way. It's a trust thing. I think there is just a lack of trust in the profession. And so I really think that there's a huge vulnerability for somebody coming to an attorney, because it's like going to the doctor. You're so scared. You don't know what's going on. The doctor is this expert, and you're sort of expected to just be like, yeah, okay, whatever you say is right. So you don't even know how to begin questioning that person, and you don't feel qualified to do so. And so that is really why. And the number one thing I feel, I don't hear it, but I know it. I can hear it in somebody's voice. I can hear it in how they're talking with me, and I do everything I can to just make them feel honestly, to feel safe and comfortable and to know that like what we do is purely transparent, that there is no, there's not going to be a surprise bill. There's not going to be something that pops up that way, and that we're always going to answer your emails.
Yeah. So for the people that are listening that might have a little bit of that fear, like you shared, like they're worried they're going to be taken advantage, or maybe they've worked with somebody in the past and they've been taken advantage of, what's like your favorite question that people ask you that kind of helps take away some of that fear? Or what's a good question for them to ask so that they could decide quickly if who they're talking to is the right fit for them?
Yeah. I think it's just a matter of whether or not that person's even willing to get on the phone with you. So it isn't even so much of a question, but I think you have to follow your gut. And this is with any professional that you're working with. Number one, are they accessible to you during the sales cycle? Right? When you're just
Yeah.
evaluating whether you're going to work with them, that's their best foot forward. So if their best foot forward isn't awesome when you're saying to them, I may want to give you some money, they're going to be even worse once you've given them their money. So I think that feeling that you get during the sales cycle, I think asking for a phone call, a free consultation, and getting one, whether it's, my consultations are 15 minutes. I obviously can't provide legal advice, but I certainly want to hear your story and I want to tell you mine and make sure that we're a fit. If they don't offer that, or they're not interested in that, and that's something you want or need, because not all my clients want it,
Yeah.
then that's another flag for you. It's really looking at what the service looks like leading up. And then when you do get on that call, go with your gut. How do you feel? Do you resonate with this person? Do you connect with this person? How do you know this person? Talk to the people around you. Like, we met each other because we have a mutual friend. And so when you have a mutual sort of referral, you can come from a different place because that person can also give you some comfort. So I think you have to sort of go with your gut. In terms of questions to ask, certainly asking about how they bill, how it works, how they deal with situations when maybe it doesn't go the way you expected it to, or there's extra time that's incurred. How does that happen? Asking detailed questions about the process, I think, is helpful. But really asking about timekeeping and what what they're gonna see at the end of the engagement, and what that bill is gonna look like, I think is really important. And also email communication style. How quickly do you respond to emails? Do you take phone calls? Things like that.
Yeah, such brilliant questions. And you're right. Like what you just shared could be like, as a coach, like everything you
Anything.
said completely aligns with like how I like to work with my clients as well. Cause I'm
Yeah.
huge on going with my gut. If I'm in my head too much, I usually make the wrong choice because I'm not
Yep.
really feeling into it and going with like that gut instinct that I know I should listen to, but for whatever reason, your head's get in the way
Yeah.
and it fights you on it. But yeah, just having the ability to like sit back and listen to what people are saying. And you can tell pretty quickly if you're going to jive with somebody and if they're going to be the right fit.
Yeah.
But you have to allow yourself to experience that, to hop on the phone, to ask the questions, and dig a little bit deeper. And I love that you mentioned referral pieces as well too, because I feel like if you can get a referral to somebody else like that, you are already like know and like the person, and you can like pretty quickly tell from there if you're going to trust them, because you're like,
Yes.
so and so introduced us, now I feel really comfortable with this. And you don't have to worry that it's like some sketchy person from the side alley that you just found.
Exactly. The
Or
weird part of the internet.
yeah. Or even with attorneys, like there's like the giant billboards, and like I've worked with attorneys, and like afterwards I'm like, I can't believe I just worked with that person. Like
Yeah.
that is not like the normal type of person I want to work with.
That's right.
So
You should not dread talking to your attorney.
yeah.
Like, if you get a pit in your stomach because you have to pick up the phone or send an email, don't work with them. Find somebody else. There's lots of people out there. You
Yeah.
shouldn't dread that. Not at
Yeah.
all.
And it's that piece too. Like you shouldn't be a number. You should be a
Right.
name and a face, and
Yeah.
they should know you just as much as you know them.
Yeah. You
So
should
yeah,
feel treated well.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. So what have been some of the things that you've seen for yourself that have helped you become successful?
I think it was, I think it's honestly the feedback that I get from people that I work with or meet have sort of given me that confidence to know like you're on the right track. So when a client will say to me like, "Oh, this was just I was so nervous about this and you've made me feel so much better," or "We've had a success or something," that's really this the way that I know we're going on the right track. And so that's sort of my markers.
Yeah.
The happiness of my staff, like my staff coming up and like feeling really good when something great happens, or, like looking in our Slack, we have like a gold stars, like mushy Slack channel
Oh, I
and
love it.
going in there and having people just being like excited for each other, talking to each other, joking around, seeing teamwork. And just knowing when like a team member needs something and I'm able to like when I was able to give my team members health insurance, that was just like an awesome feeling. And so that's sort of how I've measured our success, I guess I'll say, is just the ability to know that we're making a difference, whether it's externally for clients or internally for the women that work for me.
Yeah, that's amazing. And that feeling that you get as like the business owner to like give health insurance to your team,
Oh,
or to get to that place where you're like, we can do bonuses, or we can do all these extras, or let's have a
yes.
team retreat, or like all those things that we want to do as
Mm-hmm.
entrepreneurs, because we have small teams usually. And as you're building it out, like you want to do bigger and better things. And it's so cool when you get to the point when you're like, oh yeah, like this is all coming together. Like
Yeah.
this is success because I'm able to bring these people together and they're flourishing and who they are.
Yep. And it's also like being comfortable in saying like, yeah, we're doing okay. We're doing well. Like knowing that sort of not fighting the success, I guess I'll say, which I think a lot of entrepreneurs do.
Yeah.
And being able to sit in that moment being like, we had a great month. Like
Yeah.
we're doing great, or this client had a huge success. And we were instrumental in that. So those moments too are really what sort of keep us going. I don't look to external forces at all. I don't read business books. I don't pay attention to, I don't even know. People will ask me like, who are your competitors? I don't even know or care. There's awesome lawyers out there that probably do what I
Yeah.
do, but I'm me. And as long as I'm true to me, there's nobody out there that does the same thing that I do because I'm doing it the way I do it. And so I think turning off all of that noise has been super, super helpful in my
Yeah.
business and in helping me grow and stay true to myself.
I'm so glad you mentioned that, because so many of my clients or even prospects, when they come in, they're like, well, I'm watching what the competition's doing. And I'm always like, you can pay attention to what they're doing. Like maybe keep a half an eye, like if you want to like see what's going on in the market space and like what they're talking about, or like if their trends are kind of shifting. But at the end of the day, the only thing that separates you from everybody else is you being you and you
Yep.
sharing your story in the way that only you can. And
Yeah.
that's like totally in alignment with what I teach my clients. So I'm glad that you reiterated that for them and for me.
And I also find that particularly in this online space, the most vocal of your competitors tend to be the most exaggerating. So just take what you read with a grain of salt,
Oh my gosh,
because I
yes.
certainly know some of the backstories of some of the people who work in the space, whether or not they're attorneys or not. I'm not even talking about that, just generally, because remember that I often represent some of the people that are the most vocal in certain spaces. And I'm
Yeah.
like, that's not true. So just remember that sometimes some of the most vocal people, it may not look the way that they say that it looks. So staying in your lane, putting those blinders on, doing what's right for you, that's the way to go.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that, because you're so right. Like there's so many people that I follow or kind of watch and keep, a half an eye on.
Yeah.
And I'm like, and then I like find out more about them later on. And I'm like, oh, I was like,
Yeah.
it's not real. It's like a
Yeah.
facade. And they
And
might have a lot of followers. They might have like a big, what looks like a huge influence group. But at the end of the day, they're not making money, or they're spending so much in Facebook ads that they're spending more in ads than they're actually making, or like they're doing all these different things that are, I feel like, out of integrity. Like if you're going to run a business, like you have to profit, you have to like have a reason to sustain it. You can't just, make $1 million, but spend $2 million to make
right.
that million. Like it doesn't count. I mean, it counts, I guess, to some degree, but
Right.
why? Like
Exactly.
you're working so hard for something that's not benefiting you and your family at that point. And you're probably exhausted and drained and burnt out, and you're going to crash. And those are the people that leave the market space really quickly too, I've noticed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And for those people that are that, like, I find that everybody has different motivations, right? Like that isn't mine. And it's not a judgment on anybody. It's just you
Yeah.
do what you do and we do what we do. And I think each individual business owner just sort of has to sit down and think about what their values are, what they want to do, what's most important to them, and then build your business around that. And the
Yeah.
brand will come, the messaging will come, who you are will come, if you know truly what motivates you.
Yeah. Yeah. And making an impact is one of the pieces that motivates me the most,
Me
is
too.
being that support person, being there to help, raise people up and help, people who might not have been able to get where they are today without some support and the extra love behind it. So, but you're right. Yeah. And everybody's different. We all have different
Yeah.
whys. So,
Yeah.
so tell us a little bit then, like what, I know you work with a lot of online businesses, but tell us a little bit about the types of work that you do and the programs that you offer.
Sure. So we offer legal services one-on-one through #legal. And there, myself and my team, we work with clients of all sizes. If you're just starting to, you've scaled and it's a giant, organization, we work with them everywhere in between. And we work on a project by project basis because many of our clients, they just need projects from here and there. So on the projects we work on, it'll be anywhere from business formations to contracts to intellectual property like trademarks and copyright. We do website terms and conditions for online business owners, particularly those selling products, and privacy. We work a lot with, particularly with our tech companies, with some in-depth privacy work, and anything in between. So some of our clients, like I say, they come in and out, so we may not hear from them for a year. And other clients, I'm in their Slack channels every single day. And I'm great with all of it. And so I like working with clients of all sizes, of all needs. And it's a really cool experience when, we see repeat business or clients who maybe saved up to get that trademark. And then we hear from them 6 months later. They're like, I'm doing so well. I want you to do my contract now. That's the best win. So
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. And especially I can imagine too, if they come in with like this idea and maybe they're not ready, but you can kind of say
Yeah.
like, give them like just enough so they can get started and get to the point that they need to get to, so they can go out and, get the money together so they can trademark it or have the rights to the words they want to use, because it can be expensive and it adds up, like especially depending on what your business is and what you're trying to do. And if there's a lot of things that you want to have trademarked, I can only imagine like what that would look like for some of your clients, especially with some of the bigger businesses.
Yeah, we actually created courses through the name of our school is called the Unbusiness School because we try to make it a little bit less stuffy.
Yeah.
And so we've created these mini courses giving just foundational information about like trademarks, copyright, privacy, contracts, things like that. And we've made them really accessible from a price point because we just want to provide information. So if a client like a potential client or even just one of our visitors to our website or to our social media channels just wants to learn a little bit more, just so that they have those foundations, it will give them enough information so that they won't feel scared anymore. They'll know the things they can do on their own, and they'll know when they need to reach out for help, and they'll know the right questions that they need to ask. And so that's really where we've created. We also obviously do strategy sessions. I'll do one-off strategy sessions with people. Some clients come back to me every month or every quarter, and we sit down and strategize. But it really just, we want to be there from sort of the beginning all the way through, however your business is going to grow and evolve. And we just sort of, I want people to think that like I'm kind of in their back pocket. So
Yeah.
when the really cool stuff happens, they can call me. And maybe when some of the crisis stuff happens, they can also call. That way you're not panicked and worried, like, who am I going to call? What am I going to do? So that's why, we create a lot of content on Instagram. And I have a podcast as well to provide information. We do the courses and then we do our one-on-one legal work. So it's really fun to be able to connect with people in lots of different ways.
Yeah. And I can see that that would be so beneficial because you're an educator in so many conversations. Like you have people come to you because they're like, they have 5 million questions about what's going on with their business. And
Yep.
for you to be able to have different types of resources that don't have to be like that one-on-one conversation is huge, because so many people just need the support and the answers, but they don't always have the ability to have that one-on-one support. So I love that you built that into your practice as well. So you kind of can fit, like, no matter whether you're a brand new business or if you're super experienced and you're ready for like the growth and the scalability that comes with it as well.
Yep. Yeah, that was the plan.
Yeah. I'm curious. I love your business name, #legal. I think it's super
Thank you.
fun. How did you come up with it?
Oh my gosh.
Do you
It was
remember?
it was such a long time ago. And we were just trying to think of something that was not just Jamie Lieberman Esquire LLC. I just wanted something a little bit different, but still made people realize we were a law firm and related to legal. And because we were working at the time when it started, it was really in the blogger space. It just sort of fit. And as
Yeah.
soon as, we sort of brainstormed it and came up with it, I was like, oh, that's it.
Yeah.
It was cool. I love our name.
I like that it's fun and it's totally on brand for you and like your personality and like your heart. So I love it.
Thank you.
Because you're right. Like we can all, I mean, my business is just my name, which totally works for me, but hashtag legal is like super fun in a totally different way, especially because there's so many lawyers and attorneys out there, and it gives you like people know that you're more in the online space and that you're going to be able to support in that capacity. So it's more leading that way as well.
Yeah, I think that we definitely get a lot of clients who maybe come in the door and they're like, oh, I just loved your name. Like, it was so cool. I realized you had to sort of get or be a part of, like, understand our world.
Yeah.
So yeah, it definitely helps.
Absolutely. So I'm curious if you could tell your younger self like some amazing words of wisdom, what's one thing you wish you would have known early on?
Have patience and trust the process.
Yeah.
It all doesn't have to happen immediately. I remember coming out of college and I worked for 5 years before I went back to law school. I worked in fashion. I worked in the .com space, again, aging myself. And I worked in publishing. And I remember just wanting always to do the next thing, to get the next thing, to figure out what I was doing. Because, I came out of school with engineering and business, not really thinking I was going to do any of it. I kind of floated from job to job, especially because, in the late 90s with the .coms, I got laid off of like 3 .coms that blew up at once.
Oh my gosh.
I know. Living in New York and losing your .com job was not fun, but we lived through it. And, eventually I settled into a really amazing publishing company job, which was just formative for me. And actually is what led me to ultimately go to law school. But I just didn't know that it's sort of the path forms for you. And I'm not saying that you're passive and everything happens for you, because believe me, I went to law school and I supported myself. I had a full scholarship to law school and I worked full time while going to law school full time. So nothing happened for me. I worked really, really hard, but I also had to trust in that process. And when that opportunity arose to think about going to law school or working for this publishing company, which was sort of outside of my comfort zone and not something I ever thought that I would do, I followed it because my gut was like, this is where you need to go and this is what you need to do. And I didn't let that discomfort stop me. But at the same time, I wanted it all yesterday. So when I was sitting in my first big law job where I was just drowning in document review and just miserable in my black suit and my boring hair. And I wanted to be where I'm sitting right now immediately, but I needed to live that job, because without living that job, I never would have been able to form the company I formed, because I formed it because I knew all the things I didn't want.
Yes.
So with my younger self, I wish I would be able to say, like, it's going to happen. Just trust the process, have patience, live through the discomfort and take something from it. Cause it was hard. It was miserable. Like, I can tell horror stories of working at these places. But I also took some really amazing things from them, which led me to exactly where I'm sitting today.
Yeah. And you're right. Like, we look back at past careers and things that we've done and we're like, well, I loved these pieces, so I want to bring this with me. And then these parts, like, if I never see them again, it'll be too soon. And we know, like, not to bring that into our world and what we can expect and what questions to ask, and, how to interview the right people to make sure we have the right people around us too, because working in corporate America, and I worked retail management before I started my business, and it was a political game. Like, it was who was showing up, who was saying just the right thing to impress somebody. And that wasn't the way that it needed to be. Like, there's so many ways that you can, build teams and have relationships and do it in like a fun, positive way that is inspiring, not demotivating and making people run from corporate America like so many people have.
True.
So
it's true.
So yeah. Well, as we kind of wrap this up, Jamie, it's been so fun. I always ask my guests 5 rapid fire questions at the end or actually I think it's 4. I don't know why I said 5. I think it's 4, 4 rapid fire questions at the end, just to kind of get to know you. And it's mostly just for me, for curiosity. So I'm curious, do you have a morning routine? And if so, what is it?
Yes. I wake up and then the first thing that I do is hug my kids always, no matter
Yay.
what they're doing, whether their eyes are rolling at me, I give those kids a hug. And then I get them all ready. Everybody gets off to school. My husband walks them to school. So that's kind of nice. And then I exercise. That is extremely important to me. And I make time for it almost every single morning. Then I have coffee, which is also very important.
Yes.
And I'm lucky enough to be sitting here in office space that is thankfully opened during the pandemic, and I'm in my own space. So nobody's around and it's safe. And then I walk to my office, which is 3 blocks from my apartment.
Oh, that's wonderful.
I know, I can't complain. And then I just spend the day working. But yeah, the most important part for me is definitely loving on the kids, having some coffee, and a little bit of exercise.
I'm a little jealous right now because in California, we're still in virtual schooling. Our kids are not back in school. So I'm homeschool mom from like 8 to noon every single day. And then I've had to like completely readjust my client schedule and when I do podcast interviews and everything else to the afternoons, because usually it's like my 6-year-old needs support and help with everything. And my 9-year-old and 15-year-old are mostly okay and on their own, but like they always have questions or, somebody's always hungry or something's happening. So
somebody's always hungry.
Always. They want to eat every single day and it baffles me.
I know.
And I'm the only one that knows how to make anything in the house, apparently. So
always.
I love it. The other question I have for you is, who's been the biggest influence in your life? Who's like made the biggest impact?
So I'm going to give 2 answers. The first was actually the boss at the publishing company. He was the owner. And he really was the first person who truly sort of believed in me and made me stretch. He gave me this insane amount of responsibility when I was like 24 years old and believed in me and didn't question it at all. And just let me run with whatever I wanted to and thought I could take and do. And he had a massive influence on me. And I am forever grateful for him. When I left the publishing company, it was 2001. Well, it was 2002 by the time I went to law school. But the market crashed in 2001 in the summer, and then September 11th happened, and I was, living and working in New York. So our business basically collapsed. It went from a staff of 150 down to a staff of 30, and we took no money. We were basically like on barely any salary, just trying to keep the company afloat. And then I decided I was going to go back to school. And so he supported me in applying to law school. And when I left, he knew that I was on my own. I didn't have anybody who supported me. He knew I was going on scholarship. And he handed me a check for all of my back pay.
Oh my gosh.
And he said, I know. It like brings tears to my eyes, even, 18 years later.
Yeah.
And he said, here's your first year. And I never expected to get the money. I didn't expect it. He did so much for me, and I was willing to work without pay for him. Like I would have figured it out, and it was hard. But I was a saver. So he handed that to me. So he had an unbelievable impact on my life. And the second is Ruth Bader Ginsburg, because man, she's just an icon.
Yes, she is.
She was a trailblazer, and particularly in the legal profession, everything she did with grace and grit.
Yeah. Her legacy will live on.
Yeah.
Forever from the work that she did. So cool. And I love like your first influencer, like gave me chills, like hearing you share that story, because to have somebody who believes so much in you and support what you're doing. Yeah. Like it's rare, and it's a beautiful thing when you find people.
It's why I've always mentored. I mentor all the time, as much as I possibly can.
Yeah.
Because of the the impact he had on me. I just want to pay that forward as much as I can.
So cool. And so what's your happy spot? Like when life gets crazy and you need to like recharge and reset, where do you like to go? What do you like to do? What does that look like for you?
The beach. It is my happy place. I love the beach. Having, I was born and raised in New Jersey, so we are lovers of the Jersey Shore. We go to the Jersey Shore every summer. My kids are like beach babies. They're not babies anymore, but they've been raised at the beach.
Yeah.
The beach is truly my happy place. We are here. We are at the beach all summer, and it is just, I feel like every time I set foot on a beach, I just like, you hear that, it's the smell and the sound and the feeling of sand. It's like just my favorite place.
Yeah. And the ocean crashing like
Oh.
that. You're speaking my love language right now, because the beach is my happy spot as well. Like, luckily I live in Southern California now, and I'm less than an hour from the beach. I still don't go as often as I would love to, but when I do get to go, it's like, as soon as I can smell the salt in the air and hear the water crashing, I'm like, okay,
I'm home.
Like, no matter what's been going on, it's like everything melts away.
Yep. Yeah. And I see it with my family too. Like my husband and my kids, the minute they step on the beach, we all just are like,
Yeah. There's something magical at the beach. I completely agree.
Yeah.
And my last question for you, and I know I can't do this, but if I could give you a ticket and you could go anywhere in the world to travel, where would you go and why?
Paris. It is my favorite city in the world outside of New York. Although I don't know, Paris, there's something about Paris that just makes me really, I'm a city person as well as a beach person, but I love Paris. And I really, especially asking now when we can't travel.
Like, please send me anyway.
I know. Can I go to Paris? I was in Paris a year and a half ago. And yeah, it is without a doubt. It was the very first place I ever traveled outside the US. And I just have such fond memories of it. And I love the food. I love the energy. I love even the rudeness. No, they're not. French people are not rude. But yeah, I love it.
It takes on a life of its own, I can imagine.
I love that.
I haven't been, but my daughter, she's 9 years old, and she's asked that when she turns 16, if we could go to Paris. And so I told her yes. So it's on the bucket list. I'm like, we need to start saving for it. We're going to do this. And she wants to do this like a mother-daughter trip, like a girls trip.
How beautiful.
I'm like, sorry. Like, she has 3 brothers, and my poor husband, like, they're not apparently allowed to come. Maybe things will change over the next few years, but
it should be a girls trip, shopping and eating and just walking. Oh, it's the best city. Text me when you go.
Yeah. I'm like, are you ready to go yet, Jamie? Let's go together. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that we've been sharing this with a few people, and like my husband's sisters are like, well, can we come? Like, we're girls, we can go on the girls trip, right? So it's going to go from the 2 of us, and we're going to have like bus loads of us going by the time it happens.
It's honestly just a magical place. I actually binge watched that terrible Netflix show, Emily in Paris, just to see Paris on the screen.
I haven't seen that one yet. Maybe I'll have my daughter watch it with me.
It's so goofy. It's cute. I'd have to rewatch it to know whether or not she could.
I'll check it.
You should check it, but it's just about a young girl in her 20s who moves to Paris. It is not realistic at all. It is very, very silly. But the fashion, it's just, so good.
Yeah, no. And just the idea of like shopping and eating my way through Paris sounds beautiful, and drinking some wine maybe too.
Yes.
Jamie, this has been so fun. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast with me. Tell our listeners, how can they connect with you? Where do you like to hang out on social?
Yeah, thanks for having me. This was super fun. I loved it. So you can find us. Our website is # spelled out. It's word -legal.com. On Instagram, we are # also spelled out _legal. That's my favorite place to hang out online is Instagram. I love Instagram. On Facebook, we're #legal LLC. You can find me, Jamie Lieberman, and on YouTube, my YouTube channel is Jamie Lieberman Rocks. That's the best place to find. If you want to email me, it's Jamie, JAMIE, at # spelled out -legal.com.
Awesome. Jamie, thank you so much. I know everyone's going to be reaching out and want to learn more from you, because the amount of brilliance that you share and like the fun way that you do it in is such a great way to be. And all of us online people have to stick together anyways, right? So we're all family.
That's the truth. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, everybody. That's a wrap for this episode of the Attract and Stand Out podcast. I will see you next week. Bye.